This is Steve Colano, and this is Confidential Remarks. Data shows that 93% of home sellers who ask for a lower commission succeed in getting one. This high success rate reveals a massive gap between the initial price quoted and what the market actually requires. The real estate industry often defends this gap by pointing to choice. They claim that fees are always negotiable, and that limited service options are readily available to anyone who thinks to ask for them. But this permission to negotiate relies on the client already knowing what a fair price looks like. Without an alternative benchmark to reference, most sellers simply accept the first fee. They are quoted as an immovable standard of the trade. Placing the burden of discovery on the consumer ensures that the high commission path remains the path of least resistance. It transforms negotiation into an opt-in hurdle that effectively hides lower-cost options from the vast majority of participants. We can map this dynamic using the gatekeeper awareness framework. Modern gatekeeping rarely announces itself with locks or guards. It operates through invisible infrastructure, relying on systems that feel like natural laws of the market. These controls are built into fee structures that go entirely unquestioned, and industry standard listing requirements that are presented as the only professional way to sell a home. Most consumers live in what the framework calls condition white. This is a default state of blind trust, where the inherited model is accepted simply because no one has suggested an alternative exists. The system's power is drawn entirely from this lack of visibility. When the gates are framed as walls, the thought of walking around them never occurs. While condition white is the most stable state for legacy brokerages, it is also the most fragile. Once a consumer realizes these barriers are choices rather than requirements, the entire structure loses its authority. The transition to condition yellow begins with friction. It's the moment a mandatory fee feels disconnected from any actual value delivered, or a policy restriction starts to feel arbitrary. When these questions arise, the industry often deploys standard reassurances. They frame alternative models as risky, unprofessional, or dangerously complex to nudge the consumer back toward the default path. This creates a structural catch-22. A seller cannot request a flat fee or advisory-only service if the gatekeeper has successfully curated the environment to make those options appear non-existent. Gatekeeping thrives by managing the menu of what appears possible. It limits choice proactively, ensuring the consumer never sees the full board of available paths. This animation shows the real function of the Ask Us Anything policy. It serves as a checkpoint where curiosity is redirected back into the existing system rather than being met with genuine transparency. In condition orange, the fog lifts. The consumer starts seeing the mechanics and financial motivations of the brokerage model clearly. They recognize the gates for what they are, points of control designed to protect the incumbent. Behavior shifts from passive acceptance to active evaluation. Consumers begin comparing traditional full-service models against flat fee and advisory options based on fit rather than fear. At this stage, they learn to separate legal requirements from industry customs. They stop asking for permission and start identifying which specific services they actually need to pay for. Once the gates are visible, frustration turns into intentional preparation. Consumers and agents alike begin mapping routes around the old barriers, testing new paths that the legacy system ignored. Condition red is where awareness turns into execution. This is the moment people stop playing by the old rules and start writing new ones by building the infrastructure they actually need. This migration looks like consumers opting for flat fees and agents building independent practices that operate outside traditional MLS channels. Real change comes from creating better systems that prioritize transparency and choice. Each person who moves up the awareness spectrum makes the legacy structures look increasingly fragile. The industry is moving toward a model of proactive choice. The outdated concept of forced negotiation is being replaced by systems that provide clarity from the very first interaction. We can define a new standard for transparency with a simple comparison matrix. It starts with the proactive disclosure of every legal path available to sell a home: traditional, flat fee, and DIY. Beneath these paths, every cost is laid out explicitly. There are no hidden fees or standard charges that require a consumer to dig for information. Finally, the matrix details the specific split of responsibilities, showing exactly what the agent will handle versus what the consumer is expected to do in each scenario. Ethical transparency eliminates the need for permission. It delivers the full map of paths and prices at the start, answering the critical questions before a consumer even encounters a gate. This has been Confidential Remarks.